Hey, what's up, you guys? It is Bach Parker again, and in this video we're going to talk about, somebody asked me if they had any advice for international medical graduates on how to get a residency in the U.S., how to make sure you get a residency in the U.S. I actually did that. If you see some of my other videos, I explain what I did. I went to St. Matthew's University Medical School. The time was in Belize, and they actually ended up moving the entire school to Grand Cayman Island because there was like a big hurricane there, which I was in. So that was a little adventure on its own. But in general, I'll just kind of do in general for international medical graduates and how you get a residency in the U.S. Being an IMG. So I think the biggest thing, if there was one thing you could pick out, it'd be the USMLEs. If you do not have good USMLE scores, step 1 and step 2, you're going to have a really tough time getting a residency. And specifically a surgery residency. So I was from a no-name school, and I got a surgical residency, which is pretty tough to do. The reason I was able to do that is because I scored like a 90 percentile on step 1. Step 1 is probably the most important, and step 2 I got I think I got an 88 on step 2, and then step 3, which is during residency, which doesn't matter anymore, I scored the highest 94, so which probably doesn't make any difference. But that's the one, I would say, the one thing that you can do to make sure you get a residency. And when I was interviewing, I was getting interviews in places where the U.S. students were scoring, and I talked to them there. They were scoring in the 80s, low 80s, high 70s. I think the passing is 75 or something, I think. But they were scoring in the high 70s and low 80s, and I, with a 90 and high 88, was getting the same interviews at these hospitals. So, and some of them, they didn't even, they were kind of interviewing me, but I could tell they weren't really that interested, and I was like their last ditch effort, last resort. If they had nobody else, they would choose me. So that's the biggest thing I would say. To enable yourself to do that, you have to do really well in school, because the USMLEs are just your classes, and if you don't do well in your classes, then you come to the USMLEs, you'll never be able to do well on them. So in order to do that, you have to take every semester and do really well. And for me, I had my mindset that I'm in a Caribbean school. I'm not going to be looked favorably upon by these U.S. schools, and I need to get an A on every single test. That was that was my mindset. So if you go into your school thinking that, then and holding yourself to that, then you're going to have a lot better chance of getting a really high score on the USMLE, and then being able to get into a residency. If you want a non-surgical residency, it's much easier. If family medicine, internal medicine, pediatrics, stuff like that, then you don't have to score quite as high. But if you don't, then you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage. Obviously, there are some non-surgical residencies that are really tough, like dermatology, because you basically do nothing and make a lot of money. Probably going to piss off some dermatologists, but I don't really care, because whatever, I'll get into that later. But so those are my two things for international medical graduates. You have to do well in the USMLEs, and by well I mean you have to score probably about a 90 at least on step 1, and step 2 you should do well. Step 2, sometimes the score is not, if I can remember, the score is not back by the time they choose if they're going to interview you or not. So the step one is really the most important. And again, you have got to do amazing in class. If you're not doing amazing in class, for me, I always think that everybody's smart enough to do this. It's really, medicine is not difficult. It is difficult, but it's not like difficult there's certain people that are, not smart enough. Like if you have an IQ over 100, you can do it. It's just very time consuming, and you have to stick with it. And so there's nobody really that, if you're not doing well in class, it's because of other things, not because you're smart. It's because you either you're not sure why you want to do it, and so you're not committed. You don't have the motivation for some reason, because you don't think you can do it. Like I was there in college. I didn't think I was very smart, and so I just didn't try. I kind of self-sabotaged, and so I think a lot of people do that. They get there, you can get into a Caribbean school really easy, or an international school easy, and then you show up and you don't do anything because you don't want to. If you try really hard and then you do poorly, then maybe you think that, oh, I'm really stupid. But it's usually not the case. It's usually that you're doing something wrong, like you're studying wrong or something like that. And I've got a lot to say about that stuff, especially the people that you hang around with and who you're studying with, and those things can make a big difference too. But that is my 2 cents for the international medical graduates on how to get a U.S. residency, especially in surgery. So if you want more info on that, just put in the comments below, what your questions, and I'll answer them. And subscribe to my channel if you would. That would be awesome. All right, take it easy.